जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी 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 गोपी जन भाला गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन भाला गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन भाला जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन जय ब्रज जनरंजन जय ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन जय ब्रज जनरंजन जय ब्रज जनरंजन जमुना तीरवनचारि जय कुंज बिहारी जय जमुना तीरवनचारि जय कुंज बिहारी जमुना तीरवनचारि जय कुंज बिहारी जय जमुना तीरवनचारि जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस एसी भक्ति वेदांता स्वामी शिला प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज शिला प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य शिला प्रभुपाद की Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to the assembled devotees. Oh, glory to Shishiguru and Shigoranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 53, Krishna kidnaps Rukmini, text number 47 to 50 to 49. Text 47. Adirgandakshatair dupair Basasram Malyabhushanai Nanopahara Balibhi Pradipa Balabhi Pritak Adirganda Satair Dupair Basasram Malyabhushanai Nanopahara Balibhi Pradipa Balibhi Pritak Abhirganda Shatair Dupair Bashasram Malyabhushanai Manopahara Balibhi Pradipa Balabhi Pritak. Christian. Adir Gandhar Shatair Dupair Adir Gandha Satair Dupair Basasram Malyabhushanai Nanopahara Balibhi Pradipa Balibhi Pritak. Abhir Gandakshatair Dupair Bashasham Malyabhushanai Nanopahara Balibhi Pradipa Balibhi Pritak. Abhi, with water, Gandha, fragrant substances, Akshatai, and whole grains, Dupai, with incense, Vasaha, with clothing. Shak, flower garlands. Malya, jewel necklaces. Bhushanai, and ornaments. Nana, with various. Upahara, offerings. Balibihi, and gifts. Pradipa, of lamps. Abalibhi, with rows. Pritak, separately. I read the rest of the verse and then the translation. Bripastriya patimatis tatatai samapujayat lavana pupatum tambula kantasutra palekshubi. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Rukmini worshipped the goddess with water, scents, whole grains, incense, clothing, garland, necklaces, jewelry, and other prescribed offerings and gifts, and also with arrays of lamps. The married Brahmana woman each performed worship simultaneously with the same items, also offering savories and cakes, prepare betel nut, sacred threads, fruits, and sugarcane juice. In text 49, Tasya striyas tapradudu sesanjujujur ashisha tabyo devai namas chakre sesancha jagrihe badhu. Translation: the ladies gave the bride the remnants of the offerings and then blessed her. She in turn bowed down to them and the deity and accepted the remnants as prasadam. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Ummilitangena Tasmai Sri Gurube Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Romapada Swamin Iti Namine. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, Srimati Rukmini Devi is worshipping Goddess Gauri, also described here as a Goddess Ambalika. Amba. Let me see. Worship. Ambika. So this is different names of Durga Devi. Now, there are 9 forms that are worship of Durga Devi, demigoddess Durga. And 9 manifestations is very, many parts of India especially, one of the biggest celebration in India is this celebration of Navaratri. It's usually during the time of around right before Kartik. This Navaratri is celebrated. Nava means 9, so during 9 different days, the pious Indians, they worship Durga Devi in these 9 different manifestations. So sometimes, this is called Mahashakti is one. Gauri is another one. So these are different manifestations of Durga Devi as a powerful controller of the universe, a powerful demigoddess of material nature, and sometimes manifests as a very, very fierce warrior, killing demons. So there is this deity of goddess Durga sitting in a tiger with 9 arms full with different weapons, killing a demon. Can't remember the name of the demon. There's another feature of goddess Durga sitting in a lion. So she have different manifestation have different carriers. And this one have also many different arms and many different weapons, and is described as the mother of the universe. There is another manifestation as Kali, goddess Kali. And this manifestation is very fierce and, have the big red tongue, open mouth, and, the hair all like, in disarray, with a garland of skulls, weapons, many weapons in the hand, and, very ghastly type of deity of manifestation. And then there's a manifestation of Gauri, which is golden. Like Gaura, or, means golden. So it's a golden, beautiful, exquisitely beautiful manifestation of goddess Kali, of goddess Durga. This Gauri. And there's also Katyayani, which is worshipped, remember, in some chapters before, we read also the gopis of Vrindavan worshipping goddess Katyayani in order to obtain Krishna and her husband. Similarly to Mother Rukmini, or Srimati Rukmini Devi is worshipping goddess Gauri to obtain Krishna and her as her husband. So in general, the goddess this manifestation of Katyayani fulfill the desires of his devotees. All the desires get fulfilled. So it's a very popular worship, especially for pious Indians that want to fulfill different desires in their life. And goddess Gauri, the manifestation of Durga that is worshipped, is in Vedic culture, in general, is worshipped by persons who wants to have a very successful marriage. And so this type of worship is recommended. So now the question here is, we understand that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he discourages the worship of demigods. He described the worship of the demigods for the less intelligent, and in fact doesn't recommend it. So we also hear in the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is very, very clearly stated right at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, that in the Bhagavatam there's only one type of religion that is going to be explained, and is the Param Dharma, or the supreme manifestation of religion, that is specifically described as devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's it. Everything else, kicked out. Strong words. Right, second verse of the Bhagavatam. Kaitava Dharma. Kaitava Dharma means external religions kicked out, not to be even considered. But here we see in the Bhagavatam the description, and it's not the only place. We also discuss about the gopis worshipping Katayani, and so there are several instances in which devotees in the Bhagavatam are worshipping demigods. So, is it right? Is it wrong? Why worship of the demigods are being sort of performed by devotees of the Lord? Of course, we hear what the purpose of their worship is, which may give you a clue. But nevertheless, why not worshiping Krishna? Rukmini, she understood that Krishna was the Supreme Lord, so why not worshiping Krishna directly? So it's a good question, and there's also instances that are described in the Bhagavatam of even Lord Ramachandra worshipping Lord Shiva. In fact, there is one of the main places of pilgrimage in South India that is part of Lord Ramachandra's Leela, is this place called Rameshwaram. It's right at the, by the ocean, right down on the, the tip of the, Indian continent. And it's a place, Rameshwaram means, so it's a deity of Lord Shiva. Because Lord Ramachandra declares that Lord Shiva is worshipable for him. So it can get confusing. In fact, people becomes, people, followers of the Vedas sometimes become quite confused about the things. So I'm going to review a little bit some of the things that Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, just for our refreshment, that are very, very clear. Very, very clear. And mind you one thing also. Prior to Krishna telling Arjuna the Bhagavad Gita, you know the scene in the Mahabharata that the great battle is to take place in Kurukshetra between the Kurus and the Pandavas. And prior to the battle, the whole gathering of the day of the battle, prior to the day of the battle, Krishna recommends Arjuna in the Mahabharata, read for you, to worship Goddess Durga. Krishna tells this to Arjuna. This is part of the Mahabharata. The Holy One said, Krishna, cleansing thyself, Almighty Armed One, utter on the eve of the battle the hymn to Durga for compassing, how you say? The defeat of the foe. So, it's part of the Mahabharata. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, prior to the Bhagavad Gita, worship Durga so you may win. You may be able to win. And then, when he goes into tell Arjuna the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, he discouraged demigod worship. So, it's quite something. So here's what Krishna says again in the Bhagavad Gita. Chapter 7 and chapter 9, Krishna talks about the worship of the demigods. And previous also, in chapter 2, right in the beginning of the instructions, Krishna tells Arjuna that forget about all these things, instructions of the Vedas, mostly, he said, focus on instructions for how to elevate yourself materially. Mostly deals with the three modes of the material energy. So, forget about that. Just bypass it. And then just focus on one thing. This system or this instruction that he's giving him, Krishna is giving to Arjuna. This is right when he begins to say, listen to me, Arjuna, that now, after telling you about the science of the soul, this Atma Tattva, after telling you that you're not the body, you're the spirit soul, now I'm going to tell you of this system by which, when you positively learn it, you're going to be free from the reactions of work. There won't be no reaction. This system has been applied by all great personalities throughout the history of the world to elevate themselves to the highest position of consciousness. So, listen carefully. And he says, those who are part of this system, their intelligence is one-pointed. Vyavasya Jatmika Buddhi, like single-pointed. Those who are not part of this system, that are part of the Vedic system, the part that the Vedas deal with most of it, which is called Karma Kanda, their intelligence is Bahushaka, is many branches. So, to develop this single-pointed intelligence, Krishna said that you have to be free from the desire, this Bhoga and Aishwarya. Bhoga Aishwarya Prashaktanam. So, that once you become free from the desire to enjoy the material nature and to control it, these two things, enjoy and control, then you can develop this Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, this single-pointed intelligence that is necessary for completely perfect this system that Krishna is giving us. And then he says, the Vedas will tell you about so many of these different ways that you can fulfill your desires to enjoy and to control. But don't pay attention to them, the flowery words of the Vedas that tell you about, if you want to fulfill this, you can do this type of sacrifice and all these different things. So, as he goes on, Krishna explaining, he says that the worship of the demigods is nothing but worshiping him, but in a wrong way. If you don't properly understand If you don't have the transcendental knowledge, then you will do it all wrong. For the wrong purposes, and with the wrong consciousness, and also the results won't be what is meant for, which is elevation, but actually will be more of an entanglement. So in other words, everything that Krishna designs in this Vedic process is meant for elevation, and it has to be under the direction of transcendental knowledge, of vidya. So, Krishna tells in the 7th chapter that those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulation of worship according to their own natures. I'm in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to the particular deity. And though with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtain his desires, but actually these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Men of a small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So it is Krishna himself who bestows the benefit that the demigods are given. Because we understand later also that Krishna says that everyone in this material creation are his parts and parcel. So the demigods also are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. So when Krishna says later in the 9th chapter that those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith, actually worshiping only me, also Kunti, but they do so in the wrong way. When he say in the wrong way is because what is the wrong? That you consider the demigods to be equal or independent of Krishna. So they're not. If you worship like that, you worship in the wrong way. And so, in the case right here that we hear in the Bhagavatam, we have devotees with perfect understanding of who Krishna is and who the demigods are. And their purpose is nothing but to obtain Krishna, to establish that relationship with Krishna. That's the purpose. And that's what Krishna confirms in the Bhagavad Gita. What is the purpose of the Vedas? But to know him. The only purpose of the Vedas is to fully know Krishna in truth. So, the question is, well, the Vedas are there to give different types of people in different levels of consciousness the opportunity of elevate themselves in a gradual manner. So the Vedas have all these different levels of worship and the applications of religion in order to gradually elevate different types of people. And so that goes from a very, very conditioned person in the mode of ignorance all the way to a perfected devotee. So you got the whole spectrum that is described in the Vedas. In the Bhagavatam, we only deal with perfected devotees. So we get the example of perfected devotees. So here we get the example of how to if you worship the demigods, you have to have the clear understanding. So how we worship the demigods? We worship the demigods because they're devotees. So we do honor and worship just as we worship devotees. We acknowledge the acharyas, we acknowledge the devotees of the Lord. So great personalities like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. Well, Lord Brahma is the head of our sampradaya, of our disciplic succession. So we honor him as such. We worship just as we worship every personality in a disciplic succession. We worship Lord Brahma. Lord Shiva is the head of a sampradaya, the Rudra sampradaya. And like that, we approach demigods for the purpose of obtaining Krishna, and this is what is displayed here. That suppose in the case of the gopis, when they were worshipping Katayani, they worshipped Katayani with such intensity. And, it was a whole month, it was a whole brata that is during this time, actually. We're right now in the month of Katayani, in which Katayani brata is performed. And in Vrindavan is very cold, also, it's winter. And their performance was during the Mongol Arctic time, 2 in the morning to, before sunset, they perform this brata, and they have to submerge themselves in the Yamuna, super cold, and they do worship every day, and they hardly eat. As it's explained, some kitri without any salt, any spices, and so big austerities. The intensity of the austerity was because of the intensity of their desire to obtain Krishna as their husband. So the display of devotion and intensity was, what is being glorified. And, this is the example of top devotees. In this case, Rukmini Devi is worshipping Goddess Gauri with the same intense desire to obtain Krishna. This is something that Srila Prabhupada mentions also. It's actually very interesting. Srila Prabhupada says this, writes this in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in volume 2, chapter 2:14. Quote, somewhere the Lord was seen engaged in performing different types of sacrifices to satisfy the demigods, who are only his qualitative expansions. Somewhere he was seen engaged in public welfare activities, establishing deep wells for water supply, rest houses and gardens for unknown guests, and great monasteries and temples for saintly persons. These are some of the duties enjoyed in the Vedas for householders for the fulfillment of their material desires. So Krishna does it himself. We're going to hear that later. This is Krishna activities in Dwarka. Narada Muni comes to see Krishna in Dwarka, and then he sees that Krishna has spanned himself in so many Krishnas, and in different places he's doing different things. So somewhere he's worshiping the demigods, Krishna. So now, Krishna is doing this. He mentions in the Bhagavad Gita that although he is not bound by any type of duties, he does perform duties for the sake of setting an example. So demigod worship is part of Vedic culture. It's part of Vedic culture. It's within the Vedas. It's within the Vedas to regulate people who have material desires. And so the sense of, being part of a universal structure is an important element for having some control and order in how to execute, one's purposes of life. In one sense, again, we talked about before the importance of having a structure to actually being able to function and perform the activities that you need to perform in order to succeed in the goals that you have in life. So the whole universe is structured in such way by Krishna himself. It's designed, this is structure. And we as members of the universal community, we learn how to function within that structure. And that structure will guarantee that people flourish. Krishna says that in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that in the beginning of creation, he sent forward mans and demigods. So the structure is there. The demigods are the different department heads of the whole universal creation. And then he says, he blessed them by saying, be thou happy by the system of sacrifice, yajna. Because by the performance of this system of sacrifice, then you will obtain everything you need in this life to be happy. And at the end of life, you will obtain liberation. So here's a system. So Krishna shows that by example. He exemplifies that. And the Bhagavatam also directs us, that this is part of Vedic culture. So here we have a young, beautiful princess who desires Krishna to be her husband, worshipping the demigoddess that is recommended if you want to have, a successful marriage. It is explained that Srimati Radharani's worshipable deity was Suryadev. Srimati Radharani will worship Suryadev. And like that, there's so many instances like that. But it's not, this is just, part of the structure, the Vedic structure. But the understanding that the single desirable, worshipable personality is Krishna. And nothing else. In the Bhagavatam, Srila Sutta Goswami, in this, I think, particularly I consider this chapter the most educational for an aspiring devotee who's trying to understand and learn the whole breakdown of the practices of sadhana bhakti, or how to be a progressive sadhaka, that when you are part of this material structure, or this universal structure, and we still have to deal with our investment in this material world, how you can have a very progressive spiritual life. And that's the second chapter of the first canto, Divinity and Divine Service. And Srila Sutta Goswami breaks down, basically, during this chapter, he explained question 1 and question 2 that the sages of Naimisharanya asked, which was basically, please tell us the essence of all teachings by which people who are invested in this material world, conditioned in this material world, can achieve perfection and be happy, achieve real happiness. So this chapter basically expands on that beautifully. And the conclusion of Srila Sutta Goswami is a very famous verse that, has, one usually learn it. Vasudeva Paraveda, Vasudeva Paramaka, Vasudeva Parayoga, Vasudeva Parakriyaha, Vasudeva Parangyanam, Vasudeva Parantapa, Vasudeva Paradharmo, Vasudeva Paragati. So, that Vasudeva, Krishna, he is the ultimate goal, Paramgati. He is the ultimate goal of the revealed scriptures, Parambeda. He is the ultimate goal of all sacrifices, Paramaka. He is the ultimate goal of all yoga processes, Param Yoga. Parakriyaha means he's the ultimate goal of all fruitive activities. He's the ultimate goal of all knowledge. He's the ultimate goal of all austerities. He's the ultimate goal of all religions. He's just the ultimate goal of life. So this is the conclusion. So when whatever we do within this structure that Krishna has given us in the Vedas is meant for that. It's meant to connect us with Krishna. And so, here's the right way of, if you ever worship the demigods, is for that purpose. Prabhupada have a very funny exchange with a disciple. Let me find this letter. Trying to find this letter. I think I had it somewhere in here. Anyway, I cannot find it immediately. But basically, Prabhupada said of worship of Lord Ganesh. He said, yeah, you want to worship Lord Ganesh? Yeah, you can worship Lord Ganesh for, say, for example, people worship Lord Ganesh to obtain material wealth. Lord Ganesh is understood that he takes away all the obstacles for achieving your desires. So, you can worship Lord Ganesh to get more funds for, the Krishna conscious movement. So if you're going to do that, it's okay, you can do that. But I'm expecting you to bring $100,000 every month. If you cannot do that, then don't worship. This is very funny. Prabhupada, it's a letter. I have to find it and share it with you sometime. So, yeah, the purpose have to be clear. And that's the thing. That's why transcendental knowledge is so important, because with transcendental knowledge, we understand the position of the demigods and the position of Krishna. So here the worship by Rukmini Devi is an example of how to properly, if you approach a demigod, you do like that. You pray for pure devotional service. We pray for that. And in so many instances, there's temples. We got the opportunity to go in this yatra following the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya's travels through South India. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, during the travels of Lord Chaitanya in South India, there's a breakdown of the different places that he went. And one of them is this big, well, several ones, but, there's this big temple, Lord Shiva, that is Sri Kalahasti Temple. Sri Kalahasti Temple is gigantic, huge temple. Many pilgrims. And Lord Chaitanya went there. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta established, in all these different temples that Sri Chaitanya visit, Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. So there's a little shrine in all these different temples of Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. And so it is explained that Lord Chaitanya danced in ecstasy in this temple. And all the Shivaists, the followers of Lord Shiva, were converted in followers of Lord Chaitanya just by Lord Chaitanya being present there. But meaning that Lord Chaitanya also, connected with Lord Shiva in such a way, like that. So, but the thing is to have the proper understanding. Anyway, I stop here. Any comments or questions? Yes, Indesh.
Hare Krishna. Well, there's a couple of things. This is kind of a big topic in my life that I'm always asking questions on about the demigods. And I know you mentioned as far as like the demigods in relation to Krishna, like worshiping the demigods as devotees, but I guess I'm still not completely clear on like even what that worship looks like, because if Krishna is attainable, outside of the demigods, we don't have to go through the demigods, then why would one worship, the demigods even, as exalted devotees in order to attain Krishna?
Correct. So that's what Krishna, explains in the Bhagavad Gita. He gave us, he gave us the this perfect direct path. And, Prabhupada explains that, and Krishna says that there's no need to worship the demigods. It's actually for less intelligent people. You go and worship direct, you worship him. And he makes that very clear at the end of the Gita, exclusively. All these different recommendations that are given in the Vedas for worshiping different demigods, you abandon, you sarva dharmam parityaja. Just abandon that, give up that, and just surrender exclusively to Him. And even don't worry about not fulfilling a particular duty or things like that, because it is described that we have duties towards the demigods. You know, it's like the demigods are powerful administrators of the universe. And we have to pay taxes, you know. Like we have to pay taxes to the Cook County here in Chicago, you know, if you live like that. So we have that duty. But Krishna says, if you worship me exclusively, you don't have to worry about not particularly, the duties that you may have towards the demigods, because they're automatically fulfilled. And Prabhupada gives the example, that is part of the example of the Vedas, that when you water the root of the tree, automatically all the different parts of the tree are being satisfied. It is also in the Bhagavatam, Srila Sukadeva Goswami tells us that if you have all desires, if you have no desires, if you desires, whatever desire you have, if you want liberation, if you want material stuff, if you're free from desires, you worship Krishna. And you worship Krishna with this very intent, focus, purpose. Trivena Bhakti Yogena. This is very, very, focused type of bhakti. And you will get everything you desire anyway, like that. So, there's no need. It's for the less intelligent, Krishna explains. And what we see here in the Bhagavatam is something else. Is manifestation of the devotion of these devotees. That they will do anything in their power to obtain Krishna. So if it's worshiping a demigod for obtaining Krishna, yes, be it. So they will do anything that is there, available in their environment to obtain Krishna, because that's their single pointed desire. So the question was raised, actually. This is explained by, I think Krishna, I can't remember which one of the Goswamis. It's one of the champus of these books, that explains I have to find out. But in one, it's a book that we have, Krishna Archana likes to use it for preparing for her class. He explains, one of these acharyas explains, that in this Katyayani worship that the gopis did in Vrindavan, the reason they worship Katyayani instead of worshiping Krishna is because they don't see Krishna as God. They see Krishna as their, most beloved, personality. So, they worship a goddess to obtain Krishna. But if they see Krishna as God, then the mood of their, that rasa becomes interrupted. So the rasa of conjugal rasa, you can see Krishna as God. You see it as your beloved consort. And in one sense, similar with Rukmini Devi. Rukmini Devi had the understanding of Krishna as God, but also it is explained that it's mixed, so she wants Krishna as her husband. So it becomes, this, when the rasa, this conjugal rasa is manifested, then you don't see Krishna as God, you see Krishna as your beloved. Or similarly with Vasudeva and Devaki, you see Krishna as their child. Even though they know that Krishna is God, even though Krishna is manifesting in front of them in their Vishnu form, in his Vishnu form, Devaki at one point, overcome by the Vatsalya ras, or the parental position, she tells Lord Vishnu, please become a child, because, and make an arrangement so you can be saved, because, cancer can come and kill you. So it really doesn't make sense, but it's part of the Yoga Maya potency of the Lord that allows the devotee to enter into the proper rasa. So that's those devotees. For us, it's very clear. Our level is Bhagavad Gita level. And Bhagavad Gita tells, you forget about all this, Krishna exclusively. Sarva dharmam pariteja, manikam sharanam braja. We devote ourselves to Krishna. And the Bhagavatam shows that. And when we are in those levels in which our devotion doesn't become distracted, then, yes, whatever means is there that we want to use to enhance our relationship with Krishna, that's all good. But if we are not in that level and worship demigods, we can become distracted. So, we may obtain this benefit and that thing. So, Bahushaka, our intelligence become many branches. So that's the important thing is, our level is Bhagavad Gita level. We have to perfect, just like Krishna tells, listen carefully, pay attention, and understand, learn this process that he's giving us. So that's our program.
And then you mentioned in the Bhagavatam that it was mentioned that what the supreme religion is. And I was just wondering if you could repeat what the name of it was, and also where we can read more about that text.
Param Dharma. Param Dharma is text, you can read about it in the second chapter of the Canto 1, Divinity and Divine Service, and text number 7. And that comes the first in the first chapter. Then you find out that it's called the Questions by the Sages of Naimisharanya. So also it's nice to read those two chapters to get a picture of these questions and then how Sutta Goswami responds to these questions. So, but Parandharma is how, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam starts. The narration on the subject matter of the Bhagavatam is about that. It's about, the supreme form of religion that is defined as a haitukiya apatiyata, that is unmotivated and uninterrupted. And then it goes on. So, yeah, you can read there. You can hear many lessons. I mean, there's a lot of, if you look for Prabhupada's lessons or Prabhupada's talks on this verse, there's several, one of them is really, really fantastic. So you can look for those too. Vaishnava Prabhu.
Thank you for this class. So many important points in structured order. One thing that came to me recently that helped me a lot, because a lot of times, even after years of being in this process, you hear so many different things, it's hard to line it up and what's the most important thing. But something that I heard recently was how the purpose of this process is to get out of samsara, repeated birth and death. And for me, that helped me a lot to sum it all up, you know, because when I think of samsara, I think of like a yo-yo, right? It's going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down inside the universe, the soul. So the whole purpose is to put an end to that. And I just thought that simple way of saying it, because these things are said so many different ways. But when I heard that, it made a lot of sense. Like keeping that at the forefront, like the end, this repeated birth and death, this samsara. So I just thought I'd share.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes, Daisha.
I just had one more point. The letter that you were looking for, it's February 1st, 1975 to Bhakta. I had a Mataji, she sent it to me a while back.
Oh, that's great. Can you read it?
Read it?
Yeah.
You want me to read the whole thing or just the part?
Just the
concerning
the part that I wanted to.
Concerning Ganesh worship, it is not actually necessary for us. But if someone has a sentiment for getting the blessings of Ganesh in order to get large amounts of money for Krishna service, then it is all right. But anyone who takes up this kind of worship must send me at least $100,000 monthly, not less. If he cannot send this amount, then he cannot do Ganesh worship. Please continue distributing by books as many as possible. I hope this meets you in good health. Your ever well wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anything else before? Good? Okay, do a quickly one. Yes.
Another thing too that helps me personally to try to stay focused, because there's so many things that are so powerful, mysterious, but when I personally think about the lotus feet of Guru and just rely on serving my Guru, then it becomes a lot easier. In not thinking, even if whether I understand or not, what makes it make sense to me is when I don't reject the thoughts of Guru, and then certain thoughts come that I may not have if I don't look to Guru. So I just thought I'd share that too, because that keeps it simple for me.
Yeah, these are good tips. Thank you so much. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.